Welcome to Modern Goddess. Here we discuss everything mastering your mindset, wellness wisdom, upgrading your relationships so that you can unleash your divine goddess essence and live your authentic best self every single day. I'm your host, Cassie Aurora. Hiya, welcome to the podcast. I wanted to bring you a podcast update or just a general update. If you are new to the podcast, I often will record these episodes out walking in the park, and that is what I'm doing today. And I wanted to bring you just a small, a short kind of new moon update, a little update into what's going on with the biz, why I've been so AWOL, maybe why I'm not showing up so much for you at the moment with the astrology, which I know you'll understand, but it's important that I'm also honest with you all, and I wanted to share kind of like something that has come up for me that's been quite profound, quite deep, is affecting a lot of facets of my life and the business going forward and what that will look like. And it's like I am not sure where it's headed, so I'm literally here to share that with you and just a bit of insight into what's going on for me. Bonnie's just woken up, so she might actually want to eat, which will end this podcast anyway, so we'll see what happens. I might have to take a pause in the middle. Yeah, so her eyes are open and her head's poking out. She's in her baby wrap, which is where she spends a lot of time. At the beginning of her life, like in the first kind of 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, couldn't put her down, like literally at all. And so, now, thankfully, I can put her down. She sleeps on her own, but I like to keep her close to me a lot of the time so that she just feels she gets that kind of touch, because she's a Taurus sun, so touch is going to be on some level important to her. And with an 8th house moon, she's going to want to be close and connected. So anyway, less about that. So where was I? Yeah, okay. So I have got this beautiful new moon update for you, which I'm going to get into, but I wanted to share with you a lot about the last kind of intense weeks of astrology. A lot of people have said, this Saturn-Uranus square, which is the big mover and shaker of 2021, 2022, which is just ongoing. It kind of has these waves where it peaks in intensity. And this has been one of the big waves. So if you imagine waves washing up on a shore, it's kind of like through 2021 and 2022, the waves of the Saturn-Uranus square are going to wash over us one after the other. And we've just had one of the bigger waves, one of the ones that kind of might take you over. And you think, oh my God. And now we're just able to sort of get back up again, knowing that that wave has kind of washed over us, messed up our hair, moved through us. It's in the wetsuit. We're fully wet now and immersed, if that makes sense. The cold water's in and you can feel like if you were wearing a wetsuit and you get into the ocean and you kind of had the first wave where you feel it go in, you think, oh God, that's cold. And then it's like when it's really cold, the water in the wetsuit before it warms up. That's kind of where we are now, which is a really weird analogy, but whatever, it must be all the moon energy. But it's the waves that I'm really thinking about at the moment in my own life, to be really present. And I have been in this place where, if you've ever known anything about my journey, I was severely sick with anorexia, exercise addiction, fucking so full of trauma. You just can't even, it's kind of funny. But anyway, I healed a lot And I had come to a point where my whole life had changed. I'd healed from so much. I'd become so different. I'd aligned and attracted in a completely new reality. And that's where I've really been the last 2 years, to where my life has been like magic. In fact, I'm going to take a pause there. I'll be back momentarily because baby is making feeding cues, as you can probably hear. So I'm going to have to go home, feed her, and then return to the podcast. So with that in mind, I'm going to pause. You won't have a break. It will literally carry straight on. So we keep it candid here. All right, so I'm back. Yes, we've come for a new walk. So as I was saying, I had really done so much self-development work, and you know, it's been a game changer in my life and got me to a place where, you know, I do help and impact others, you know, with the coaching I do and all these things, but I've never for one moment kind of wanted to or ever said to clients that there's something I don't struggle with, because there's definitely things that I have to overcome in myself that I will share with clients. You know, I'm not immune to old stuff coming back. But this whole like pregnancy, birth journey has meant, you know, when I think about the story of health and having adequate rest, sleep, nutrition, time to just be well, and do all those things that contribute to you just feeling well, I actually hadn't, you know, my life got turned upside down. I wasn't doing those things, and very quickly my mood was dropping, and I felt like I was going towards kind of postpartum depression, but I was like really beside myself, really not who I wanted to be. And it was almost like all those low vibrational things that were hidden within me were like right at the surface, because maybe they hadn't been dealt with until now. Maybe they weren't. Maybe I could just keep on top of them until now. Those are things like my compulsive behaviours, which, because I've come from a place of severely being poorly and sick and actually like felt very well, I didn't really feel there's much dysfunction going on or kind of things that were holding me back from my best self. You know, I don't want to label myself dysfunctional, because then it just becomes another label, it becomes another thing we define ourselves by, or at least I can definitely do that. So anyway, I was kind of aware that in my pregnancy, you know, I was eating well, I was moving, but when the baby came and I really realised actually I still have dysfunctional patterns because I didn't have time to eat, and then it became a thing that I just wouldn't eat, and then I didn't have time to do my exercise in the same way, and I was literally so anxious because of it. I was ruminating all sorts, like my thoughts and mind were everywhere, and I was walking like 25,000 steps a day non-stop, not even out of like wanting to, like purely out of compulsion. And obviously it was already difficult in our relationship with the baby coming in. It changed the dynamic, and it was like all these things I were doing, like Alex is obviously working through his things, you know, and I was, you know, not in the best place. So it's been a really hard, where are we now, 7 weeks, because she's 8 weeks today. And I was really at like a breaking point, and I was thinking I really need to take antidepressants or something, because I cannot. And I've never done that, even when I was hospitalised with my eating disorder, even when I've been in treatment, I've never turned to that. And my mind was really neurotic, like nearly psychotic, I think. But I never turned to that, and I really felt like I needed that. And Alex was like, I don't agree with it. And it was this whole thing, because, you know, we were both tired. But for a few days I didn't. I thought, okay, I'm not going to. I'm going to see how I go. because I was around Bonnie, like when she was really screaming, because I was so depleted, because I was in just this fixed negative, and I want to say negative not to like shame it, just it was not the vibration I want to live in. It's like this mindset of just being beside myself, not seeing the beauty in the moment, not being able to enjoy anything of mamahood, just being sad. And I reached like a few breaking points. Every few days I'd have like a meltdown where someone had to come and take the baby from me, and I'd be literally hysterically crying for like hours and unable to gather myself, and literally feeling like, not dark thoughts, but just like the overwhelm was insane. Like it was the biggest mistake I'd ever made. And yeah, anyway, so I was not wanting to continue and be like this around my daughter, because I know the effects of trauma. I know the effects that my energy will have on her. Like, I do not want to fill her with emotional neglect as best I can. I get that it's going to happen. She's going to get fragmented. It's the process of socialising. Me as a parent, I could do the best that I can, and it may still happen. But I don't want it to be a constant thing. So this is why I was thinking maybe I should have some antidepressants or just something to help level out my mood, so that it wasn't like this around her and having these episodes, because it was like I wanted something to take the edge off, because I was being so defined and so overwhelmed by all these things. And so I then was in the cupboard the next morning, just not making breakfast because I wasn't eating, and that's a whole other thing that was all enraptured in this and adding to the cascade of feeling rubbish because I wasn't eating. So, and I saw my ceremonial cacao, my shamanic cacao, and I hadn't had it my whole pregnancy because it didn't feel right at all. And then I was like, this is the medicine that I really need. And I'm not a big person for looking outside of you, but I was in a place where I needed something to shift me up into a certain place, to take the edge off, so that I could just be level for a few days, to then start kind of questioning and self-inquiry and start to release what needed to be released. But it was like, could not do that. So with cacao, it's a really powerful medicine because it releases loads of dopamine and loads of serotonin, and for me, I instantly knew it was the right medicine. I made it, with adaptogens, and I wasn't even putting intention in, like everyone's like, oh, put this intention in. Well, for me, I was like, please cacao, just keep me sane, get me through the day, that'd be fab, thanks. And then I would drink it. I'd take as much or as little as I want. I wasn't taking a ceremonial dose every day, and I am still taking it. So I am taking about 20 grams a day maximum, just as a morning drink. And honestly, it's maybe not the medicine, because there's a lot of work that I've done before, but there's lots of weird things that happen from that point. So I was working with the cacao, I was level, I was feeling my mood was much better, and I was really coping a lot better, but I was still not feeling, what's the word, like joyful. I could still feel all of my patterns and my compulsions in the background. By the way, I never thought I really had compulsions for the last few years because I'm so much better than I was. But actually it had been simmering right deep down under the surface. And this is what I always talk about, like this paradox of progress, the spiral of expansion. So if you imagine a spiral now, and you are expanding constantly in your consciousness, whenever you think, oh, I'm back here again, this is the same pattern, or oh my God, I can't believe I've relapsed. Imagine a spiral going outwards. You end up at the same point every time you go around the spiral, but it's a different angle, it's a different perspective. It's not the same. It can't be the same. So I knew the whole time, okay, I'm not going backwards, but also at the same time, I never felt so disabled and so diseased. I was like, I am really messed up. I was like, what am I doing coaching? Why am I studying psychotherapy? Why the hell do I have a soul gym? Who the hell am I to be sharing all this content when I am literally a compulsive mess? But anyway, I never really used the word compulsion. But Alex and I were having this heart-to-heart one night because I still wasn't really eating. I was still kind of anxious and on edge all the time and kept going into compulsive thoughts about finance, which has never been a thing. I've been feeling really abundant for a very long time. But when Bonnie was born, all the deep shadow in there that I hadn't been able to access came right to the surface. And so even money thoughts. So I think it was a thing around money, and I suddenly decided I needed to go and get a job like now, which is obviously wasn't even rooted in love or choice, whatever. Anyway, so then I decided that I would, just go on this mad one thinking I need to fix all these things that are broken, and it was this whole like Uranus vibe, like wanting to fix but actually needing to be rooted in some kind of reason. So me and Alex were talking, and then he said to me, he said, I'm really sure that you have OCD. And I was like, no, I don't have OCD, because one of our mutual friends has explained to me what OCD is like for her. And I was like, firstly, I don't believe in labels. Secondly, I don't think I have OCD. I've got an eating disorder. And I don't believe it's one or the other. I don't believe humans are like white or black, how we are labelling these mental illnesses. But I also think they can be helpful from a certain perspective to understand the mechanism. And I think they can be helpful to just gain another insight into how something may be working. So anyway, I was like, no, I don't have that. I went to sleep, woke up the next morning and thought, someone else had said the word to me, compulsive. I think it was my therapist, and she was saying to me, you need to let go, be present. The compulsive thoughts will come up, let them go, which is all this stuff I know in theory, but I wasn't actually realising that I was in compulsive thought loops until I went and looked at OCD. And I was like, holy shit, this is so much more like in line with how my mind has always worked. So it's not like I've been like, oh, all this time I knew it was going on. I literally never realised my mind was working like that. But because it had attached to like working, it had attached to helping people, it attached to like what we would societally say positive behaviours were. And I didn't really feel as sick as I was years ago. I felt like, to be honest with you, I felt great. But actually, when Bonnie came along, I was all of those compulsive thoughts were unearthed. And then I started to become very aware, and I realised I get in compulsive thought loops and then do things like the exercise, which may just be something small like half an hour, but it's still the same pattern as when I was doing 5 hours a day. And I might skip a meal all in the name of like, oh, I don't fancy eating, and then ruminate over it for hours and hours. And I actually realised, although my behaviours are not as compulsive, it's almost like I'd internalised the compulsive thought patterns I didn't even know were there, to the point where I realised I would ruminate over certain things that are to do with like triggers or whatever you want to call it. Literally, I realised I was in a loop about Soul Gym for about 10 days continuously. At the same time, I've probably been in a loop around body image, a very silent, subtle loop around food, body image. That's been going on, like, even though it's not always, but I've definitely noticed that must have been going on since I was 11 years old, definitely. But because it's nowhere near like it was like I didn't think it was a thing. And I think this is why people say eating disorders never really go away, because I think the what's the word I'm looking for, like the intensity of it is so much less. But then actually it's still a thing, and I don't want it. Like, I don't want anything to be attached to me. It's almost like impurities. Like the goal for me, and this doesn't have to be other people's goals, is to drop those things. If I could drop all of those things, how magnificent I would actually feel, and maybe even would be completely different. But the idea of dropping all those things is actually terrifying. It feels like all the edges are falling away, and I was like, oh my God, like I need to drop all this stuff. And the realization came that, okay, I can drop this. These are the dregs now. It was very different before. It was a big paradigm shift. So the last kind of 4 or 5 days, I have been observing how many loops I get in. It's hilarious. I was in a loop like yesterday for I think like about 6 hours about which exercise class to do, even though I didn't want to do any, to the point where I was doing kinesiology to like decide what to do. And it's just like, I realised that my whole life has been constructed around these fear patterns, compulsive patterns. The bigger one being, the biggest thing that my OCD is all about, invariable of the behaviour, belief, whatever, these OCD patterns that I have, whatever they are, which do not define me, they are not me, but these behaviours, whatever, that I've been acting out, they're all rooted in certainty, creating this certainty, to the point where I was like, I think I've always used astrology that way. I think my whole business and all of the things I've done for work have all been like because I had to work, and like I've had to make the skills that I have work for me. Like I've had to build a business because when I was 15, mum died and I just had to work, and I never stopped working. I never even had more than 2 weeks off because I did not have a choice. University didn't happen for me. Financially, it wasn't viable. There was literally no support. I did about 2 years in uni and then my funding got pulled and there was no way I could get it back. So it was just like, for me, I have always had to hustle to make what works work. Now, I don't need to do that. Now I actually have the option of going, I don't need to do any of these things. I can sit back and discover who I am beyond these last few remaining compulsive thought patterns, which actually I didn't realise had still been ruling the roost for me. So now I'm spending most of my days relaxing. The compulsions come up because everything in my routine is based on compulsion, literally. Pretty much everything in my life, apart from Alex, I would say, has been based on that. And I watch them come up and actually can sometimes get in the loop. And then I'm like, wait, I'm in a loop. And it's kind of funny. So my perspective on it is not one of distress. So before people reach out and email me thinking, I'm here for you, I appreciate that, but at the same time, I'm kind of celebrating this realization. I feel very lighthearted about it. I feel like it's completely lost its power. The only thing that can feel challenging is the waves of anxiety when I don't act on a compulsion, but I'm like, let the waves come. Let the waves come. As 2021, for many of us, has been waves of stuff. Let it come. Because we are mountains that cannot be moved. With all due respect, my stubbornness is one of the greatest assets at times, because I will not let these waves of anxiety now take hold, which I didn't realise. Like, I was doing all the things, but until I'd had Bonnie and until I'd been through birth and until motherhood had cracked me wide open, I could not have accessed these things. And I was sitting here thinking, I'm a fraud, but I don't think I'm a fraud. I think I've still really helped people. Well, I know I have. People always reach out and tell me how much I've helped, but at the same time, I feel now is the time to take a natural pause and not be putting content out there, even though I am. But this is me telling you, because I don't want to do anything that's not rooted now in 100% feeling of heart-based alignment and goodness. Like, I just don't want to do it because it's poison to you and poison to me. And I realised there was a lot of points where I was kind of not forcing, but trying to make everything fit when it didn't fit anymore, and it was all falling away. It's this whole Saturn-Uranus square, holding on, and it's just been like, no, I can't hold on to these things anymore. They're literally going, and I'm taking these little bits of what works. I don't want to suddenly close Soul Gym, shut down my business. I'm not going to do that. But at the same time, there needs to be a pregnant pause, a pause that there's going to be something coming out, but there's a pause. You know, there's an expecting of something new, and I will show up and serve you. I know I will, because that's who I am. That's just my nature, or at least I think it is. Who knows? But let's not get in a loop about that one. But I'm like, I need to let my hands off the reins and not produce, not put myself out. I want to become a little bit invisible for a time whilst I go on this real journey of self-discovery, which will be mainly relaxing and not doing and being. There's nothing I need to be doing right now. There's nothing. I need to just be. So that is the energy of this new moon, is the softness that's coming with the realization. And so for loads of people, well, that's my story, and now I'm segueing into the new moon. So there it is for you. You know, I don't know if you've even hung on this far. If you have, well done. If you're asleep, not surprised. But yeah, so with this astrology, this new moon in Cancer, it's kind of like we've had this chaotic 2021. There's been moments of beauty, but there's been real difficult, edgy, hard moments in June for some. It's been a weird year where it feels like the foundations have been shaken and things aren't grounded and everything's shifting and the puzzle pieces are just being chucked around left, right and centre. That has been going on. But in truth, this is one of those moments I said when I looked at the astrology of 2021 that, like, okay, this is going to be one of those nice moments of relief. It's just soft, it's just gentle, and that's what it has been for me. I've already felt it coming in, but also for you, I want to just offer you a little insight into the astrology. You can take it or leave it. There's a new moon in Cancer, so whatever house in your chart that's happening in. If you don't know, I've got like a free step-by-step guide on my website. You can download it. It will tell you how to find the houses and generally what they mean, some of the significations of the house. But it's in the Cancer house of your chart. It's speaking in like this conversation of connection and harmony and supreme support from the planet Neptune. So Cancer is the archetype of the healer, the nurturer, the emotional healing, the safety, the motherhood, the emotional safety, the home, the family. It's like this foundation, this juicy bed of like soil that sustains us. That's really Cancer. It's a water sign. And it's the womb. It's a cardinal water sign, so it's the beginning. The womb, if we think about the womb, it's beginning. It's filled with water. It's kind of, but it's a nurturing space. Cancer is that womb, and it's almost like a return to that moment of stillness and softness and warmth and nurture that can be found here. At some area in our lives. And then you've got the trine from Neptune. And this trine from Neptune is Neptune is the planet of transcendence, healing, dissolving. So when we speak about dissolving in a Neptune trine as opposed to a square, it's very different. So a trine is a positive, supportive aspect in astrology. So we are being supported to dissolve things that stop us finding that safety, being supported to dissolve things so we can feel safe and held, and we're being held whilst we dissolve and let go of things, whilst we can set up and transcend beyond what is going on materially. If Neptune was in a square, just, you know, FYI, if you're interested, square on opposition, this can dissolve things in a way that doesn't feel good, like something disappears, someone is lost to us, or, you know, we feel like an intense kind of exaggeration of something that feels like confusing. because it's a confusing planet, and that we've had, by the way, a very confusing energy pretty much from the beginning of May through till last week of just foggy, annoying Neptune energy, which we're coming out of, by the way. So there's this moment of clarity that can be found from now for the next 28-day cycle. For me, it's just a beautiful energy, and I'm hoping that for you will be using this to guide you to more bliss, more wisdom. You can use this to shed away layers of stuff that doesn't serve you, but honestly, it's very subtle. It might just happen on its own, but see if you can create space for that. I think for a lot of people, they'll look back at this time and be like, oh, that seed that I planted around July, when this new moon energy has grown into something very magnificent and more in aligned with something that serves my higher purpose. That's really Neptune. It's soul transcendence. It's beyond the physical. And this offers a doorway out of the physical and into that bliss-like state, should we take it. But because for me, it's been preceded by absolute chaos and shitness and madness, which has been June, to be honest. But the whole time, it's almost like I've been watching it happen rather than being defined by it. But definitely has been defining me pretty much my whole life. And now it's like this perspective where we can somehow be in a more higher-minded space. We can step into those higher realms of, I want to say, consciousness, shift and elevate, should we want to. Not everyone will feel this way, because everyone has got personal stuff going on in their own chart. But this is just me sharing it with you because it's such a beautiful new moon that really sticks out and offers us something new. Whereas a lot of the lunations to come are back in that Saturn-Uranus theme. So definitely the end of July, full moon Aquarius, I was saying, just Soul Gym is going to give us, that whole, boom, lunation that's, it's going to show us, we're going to be back in the Saturn-Uranus challenging story, but it's going to illuminate more for us so that we can get further, we can transcend more. And this is all that astrology can be for me. I think going forward is this vehicle of discovery, but I don't like predictive astrology, purely because I like to think we have free will and we can take and leave what we want. But for some reason, people are still coming to me. I'm attracting in people that want certainty. And I am no longer willing to commit to a life where I need to hold on to certainty constantly. The only certainty I know is that everything is uncertain. And I need to let myself feel safe in that. And I need to align to that personally so that I can serve you better. But at the moment, I'm not there. So, baby's stirring again. Oh, she's got like dribble and it's on my chest. Ugh, nice. How lovely. But this is kind of me personally telling you that if you're new to this podcast, if you've been listening for years, that I am checking out for some time. If you're in Soul Gym, keep an eye on your inbox, because I'm kind of deciding what to do with that at the moment. I don't want it to be that I abandon you altogether, because the content on there, everyone is saying there's literally thousands of pounds worth of content on there, and I want people to be able to access that. But I'm not going to be as present, and I'm aware that that will change the dynamic. But at the same time, it needs to work for me so that energetically it's working for everyone. So I hope that you found this podcast insightful or useful in some way. I'll be really interested to see how you find the new moon. Don't be afraid to reach out. You can message me on Instagram at I am Cassie Aurora. You can email me, hello@cassieaurora.com, whatever feels good for you. Or you can simply, not email me, that's fine. But I'm wishing you well. Enjoy this new moon. And if I can, if anyone wants to chat to me about, like mental health, overcoming the challenges of it, I'm happy to chat to you, because that's been my journey, and I know I've come really far, but I'm in the thick of it right now in a different way, from a different angle, from a different standpoint, and I have no shame in saying that, because I still know who I have become, and what I have done has still been of benefit to people, and yeah, that's fine, doing the best I can. Change is a process and not an event, so I will leave you with that thought. Nature's our teacher, and it's a slow changer. So have a wonderful week. Watch out for that thunderbolt Uranus energy, that strong Saturn energy. Or hang in there, reach out to me if you want to chit chat. I love a voice note. And we'll speak soon.